Into the Fringe, where we discuss lost civilizations, UFOs, cryptids, unsolved mysteries, megalithic structures, extraterrestrials, interdimensional portals, time skips, and more. Don't change that channel, because now you are leaving the mainstream and entering into the fringe. Greetings, followers. It is I, Cardinal Sin, and welcome to another episode of Into the Fringe. And tonight's guest is Mr. Albert Rosales. And born in Cuba, Albert Rosales migrated to the U.S. in 1966. He had several unusual incidents as a young man while living in Cuba, and such incidents continued as an adult in the U.S. Rosales became interested in unusual phenomena and UFOs at a young age, but soon directed his focus to the crux of the phenomena: the humanoids, entities, extraterrestrials, UFOnauts, etc. He began collecting data on such encounters from worldwide sources in the late 80s. He currently has a database of close to 30,000 entries, which is updated and corrected daily, and has published 16 books to date. Welcome back, my friend Albert Rosales, to Into the Fringe.
Hey, Cardinal, it's good to be back. We're ready to go. This is, we're doing 2000 to 2009, and here's the book.
And hopefully we'll be giving away an autographed copy of that later.
Yes, hopefully we got some good cases to cover.
And we have JM here from Argentina, from Buenos Aires.
Oh, hello.
Greetings. And Ari is here, and Phantom Boomer is here. So while we're waiting for some other folks to roll in, I wanted to ask you, Albert, why is there not a 2000 to 2004 book and a 2005 to 2009 book?
Basically, when I back then, there weren't that many cases for the years 2009, 2008, 2007. So I had to combine all those together because there were not enough cases. Now there is, but I had to condense the book from 2000 to 2009 due to the amount of 2009 to 2008. There wasn't that many. There wasn't that many cases, so I had to condense them.
Fair enough.
Sorry, somebody screamed over here. Oh, what's one?
Okay, so and again, while we're waiting for folks to roll in, can you tell us about the different case types, what they mean, where they come from, and which ones you added?
I used the old Hynek Close Encounters of the Third Kind scale, which basically type A, which are incidents where a humanoid or an entity or any type of gray whatever is seen on board or on top of a UFO or a flying saucer or spaceship or whatever you want to call it. Then we got type B like a boy, is when you have an incident in which a UFO is seen on the ground and entities are seen coming in and out of it. In, out, or they come in, or they're seen going in. Then we have type C, like in Charlie, when there's an object nearby, on the ground nearby, and there's entities close to the object nearby. The witness or the witnesses do not stay around to see the creatures go back inside the object, so they saw them near or around the object, so that's a type C. Then we have type D like in Delta, is when there's let's say there's a general flap of events or cases in an area of lights in the sky or UFOs or whatever, and there's a strange entity seen around the area at the same time, not necessarily accompanied by a UFO, but we have to assume it's connected to it somehow, to the UFOs. And we have type E, which is very common nowadays. With usually when you encounter entities in like different settings by themselves, no UFOs or anything like that. A lot of them in your bedroom, in the woods, in the road, or driving down the street, and you see something, or walking on the side of the road. That's either a single entity or three or four or whatever. Type F, if when there's some kind of psychic composition in the event. Let's say that your witnesses see a hovering disc or an object, and he receives some kind of a mental communication or telepathic communication from the object, but he doesn't see any creatures or humanoids. Then we go to after that is type G, which is again, I think is the most common right now, is when the person either abducted into a UFO, or they voluntarily go inside the craft. Usually you have the abductees and the contactees. Contactees are usually the ones that they volunteer, they want to go on board.
Right.
After that, you have the type H. One is an alleged retrieval or recovery of a crashed UFO and an alien or humanoid entity. I added type X, which is an incident that's really high strange, not necessarily connected with entities, but is really out there, really crazy.
Easy to remember. X,
Yeah,
like X-Files.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And then I added a new one recently, type I, when there's an injury or a death in connection to a close encounter with an entity or UFO, which has been reported. And I added one at the end, which is a type U dot A dot unknown animal. Let's say when somebody
like
sees yeah, but not necessarily Bigfoot, but it's another type of cryptid, I guess. Maybe
I don't know if you heard about this, but
yeah.
I saw somewhere on the news today that they had discovered a new cryptid. But I don't remember the details. I just kind of
I have not heard of it.
skimmed past it.
I've been out at the bed all day, but I didn't hear it. No, be interested to find out. Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. Do you want to take the first case, or should I?
Yes. No, I'll take it. Okay. I'll take the first one.
All right.
This is from 2000, the year 2000, 3 a.m. from a place called Las Curias and municipality of Cupey, Puerto Rico. Late at night, as Araceli Guzman and her brothers watched television in one of the rooms while their mother slept in her room, they suddenly heard their mother scream out in absolute terror. They all ran to her room to see what had occurred. They forced the door open, and once inside, they found their mother apparently unharmed, but in a state of panic. Trembling, lying on a fetal position on a corner of her bed. They had never seen her in this state before. Her bed was positioned in front of the window, and as they rushed in, they caught a glimpse of a reddish beam of light, laser-like, that seemed to be exiting the room from the window at an inclined angle. They asked their mother what had occurred and what had she screamed. Their mother, Gloria, told them that a multicolored light, but predominantly magenta red in color, had entered the bedroom through the window and transformed itself into a thin beam of light that touched a corner of the bed. The moment this beam of light touched the corner of the bed, it changed into a horrible, according to her, a horrible-looking creature. She described the creature as very small, perhaps the size of a large cat, with strange-looking antenna-like protrusions and extremely hairy. Once she saw the creature near her, she went into a panic and screamed. Once she screamed, the creature seemed to blend into the reddish magenta beam of light and vanish. Once this happened, the beam began retreating out of the bedroom through the window. At that very same moment, her children rushed in. According to Gloria Guzman, that's her name, the creature that she saw resembled a large Persian cat, very hairy but with a delicate looking hair. Gloria added that it seemed grotesque in appearance, with strange facial features and large penetrating eyes, yellow reddish in color, that contained very dark vertical pupils. Its hair was also reddish, magenta in color, similar to the beam of light that had come in through the window. However, this strange and grotesque creature at no time did it demonstrate any aggressiveness toward her or attempted to approach her at any time. It only remained still, staring fixedly at the witness. The strangeness did not stop there. When they opened the bedroom door, Araceli, that's her daughter, and her brothers noticed a reddish beam of light retreating out of the window. They rushed to the window at the same time, hearing a low buzzing sound, and were surprised to see a hovering, bizarre-looking craft with several lighted windows. Behind the windows, they could see several humanoids, apparently looking down at them. They described the humanoids as thin, with large hairless heads and necks longer than normal. They could only be seen from the torso up. They also had black slanted eyes. They appear to be the gray types. They were able to see the entities clearly, especially one that was at a window positioned closer to the location. He had a gray skin tone. The windows were square or rectangular in shape. Since they were longer than they were higher, and encircled the craft along its central area. The craft they describe is as silvery metallic in color, very shiny like polished metal. The top section of the craft was elongated, resembling a bottleneck. There was a total of 4 humanoids standing behind the windows, staring at the witnesses, and behind these they could see movement apparently of other humanoids. A very interesting detail described by the witnesses was what appeared to be some type of protuberance resembling a periscope located on the bottom section of the object. This device began rotating in all directions and at the same time emitting flashes of light compared to those of a flash camera. The flashes of light will be either blue, red, or green in color. According to Araceli, they and the beings inside the object stared at each other until about dawn. When the sun began to rise, the object rose up into the air some meters and then took in the periscope type device. It then flew up in a straight line, quickly disappearing from sight. I'm sorry, disappearing from sight. The only sound they heard was the slight buzzing sound. The witnesses did not perceive any positive or negative impressions on the part of the entities, only apparent curiosity. Another strange detail the witnesses noticed was that during the presence of the craft, their guard dogs and the neighboring dogs and cats remained completely quiet. That behavior was strange, especially that of their guard dog, which was very aggressive. Their mother, Gloria, prevented the witnesses from going outside to obtain a better view of the craft and beings. This incident I received from Jorge Martin and from Puerto Rico, and it shows what I say a type A, which is entities aboard the craft seen, and a type E at the same time, which that little entity, whatever that was, inside her bedroom.
And I was going to ask you, is this graphic for that or for the next one?
The next one.
Okay.
Very
So I'll
scary.
go ahead and
Okay.
leave that one up there while I read that. If I can figure out how to work my computer. Okay, so this one is located in Hartford, Maryland. Date 2000, time 5 o'clock in the morning. Donald Kessler was returning home from a friend's house. He was on an unusually busy highway, but at that time it was Saturday and appeared totally deserted. After passing the I-95 exit, he saw a 7 or 8 foot tall creature step out of the median strip and set out into the witness's path. It had dark curly hair, a flat, featureless face, little beady black eyes, no nose, and a large row of pointy teeth in his grinning mouth. It was dressed in a brown work shirt, pants, and black boots. It turned its head looking at Kessler and then disappeared. The witness reported that he nearly skidded off the road after hitting the brakes. Apparently, the witness saw the same or similar creature a couple of years later. And this is a type E.
Yeah, creature, whatever that was, appears to be some kind of combination cryptid humanoid. Alrighty, here we go. The next one, we go to Chile. The location was Villa San Rafael in Chile. The date, January 12th, 2000. Time is 23:45, 11:45. Two local young residents reported a strange experience on this Saturday night. It all started when one of the boys noticed that his pet garden snake had escaped. It was only about 40 centimeters long, and it had somehow sneaked out of the cage. He called his friend over so he could help him look for it in a heavily overgrown brushy area near his home. They recalled that half an hour before, their two dogs strangely began to howl and cry, but they didn't give it much thought. As they were searching for the pet snake, they saw suddenly, at about 30 meters away, a dog that they had never seen before. They picked up some rocks and threw them at the dog, but to their surprise, the supposed dog seemed undisturbed and did not even budge as a result of the barrage of rocks, something that confused the young witnesses. Soon after they were able to see that the strange animal or dog, quote, began to move in a strange manner. In its forelegs, it advanced on its two front legs like a rabbit, and suddenly it stops and stands up on two legs. At the same time, both young witnesses perceived a strong energy, like an electric shock, in their stomach area. Where the strange creature then began to walk, making loud dragging noises and making short jumps, only moving one of his legs. The two boys thought that the creature had been injured by the rocks. They described the entity as resembling a rugby ball with legs. One of the boys became so frightened that he began moving away. However, the other boy remained behind, feeling a strange attraction toward the creature. He advanced to within 2 meters from the creature, which apparently emitted a strange glow, which permitted the witness in seeing the creature clearly, despite of the darkness. He remained paralyzed, staring at the strange creature, which he was able to describe in full detail. The creature's head was of normal size, like a boxer dog. He had slanted eyes, like an alien, quote, red or yellowish in color, which the witness was only able to see once as the creature moved his head in a strange movement compared to that of a lizard. At the same instant, the boy heard a voice in his mind that said, "Run, don't look." The creature's ears were flat, like a saucer, and relatively large. He had short arms, he had elbows and 3-digit hands, with a membrane similar to ducks, but somewhat shorter. He doesn't remember seeing nails. The hair was similar to that of a pig, black in color. His back was hunched over, but he was able to see a sort of protuberance on it. The creature's back was sort of hunched over, and he was able to see a sort of spiny fin along his vertebral column, from which protruded long, thick hairs. Sounds like a chupacabra type creature. The hair, but with mental capability, telepathic capabilities. The hair of this part of the creature was gray at the bottom and whitish yellow at the tips, 3 times thicker than normal and about 5 centimeters long. When the creature gave the young witness the order, quote, to run, this one ran from the area in a state of panic, feeling a strange, inexplicable coldness around him. Together again, both boys did not see the creature again. This is from the late researcher Vigilio Sanchez Otejo. He wrote a book called La Mascota de los OVNI, which means the UFO pets, Spanish book. And I knew him personally. He lived here in Miami. We're in the year 2000. There was an incredible amount of incidents in Chile, encountering different type of creatures like that, all sorts of creatures.
It seems like Chile has been a hot spot for UFO activity for decades.
Yeah, and then the next case where you have an image on it also is from Chile, another weird creature.
There we go there.
Yeah.
So let's dig into that one. Okay, so this is in, I'm going to murder this, Rancagua, Chile.
Rancagua.
Rancagua, okay. The date was the second week of February, January, 2007 in the afternoon. The main witness at the time lived with his grandmother in a house at the foot of the mountains. And in the afternoon, he and his brothers would usually go play on the hillside. One afternoon, while his brothers and a friend played with several toys under a tree, the witness ran up the hill when suddenly small clods of dirt began falling around him. At first, he thought that someone was descending the slope, and he hid behind a tree when he saw a strange figure or shape descending the hill. It was gray in color, and it would hide behind rocks and shrubbery while it descended the hill, and was gray in color, and it would hide behind those rocks. At one point, the figure no longer had a hiding place and stood in clear sight of the witness. The witness described the creature as a gray-colored creature with an elongated head, about 1.2 meters tall, with 3 digits in both of its hands and feet. The eyes were like slits, and its most amazing feature was a duckbill-like protrusion on its face. The frightened witnesses remained hidden behind the tree. His brothers and friends were making a lot of noise, and the creature began looking around, moving its head. Filled with courage, the witnesses decided to approach the creature, which immediately noticed him and emitted a loud, shrill-like scream, and it began approaching the witness. Terrified, the witness began throwing rocks and small limbs at the creature and ran downhill from the area. And this is a type E encounter.
Right. I got this from a Chilean researcher that runs a website called Enigmas Fantásticos. All right. The next one, that's a weird image. I didn't want to send that many, but I thought this one was cool. It's from Isla de las Muñecas, the Isle of Dolls, very well known in Xochimilco, Mexico. In the summer of 2000, the time was 2 a.m. And this nearly deserted and mysterious island is known for the dolls that people hang around in the trees there. Kind of creepy. The witness, Gustavo Mendoza, was navigating through one of the many canals on his way home when suddenly a strange, bizarre entity jumped in front of his boat. It resembled a man, but it clearly wasn't. He was jumping back and forth all over the area like a frog, blocking Gustavo's small boat. It was like a dark, shadowy figure with a humanoid form and long, dangling arms. Terrified, the hair of his body stood up, and Gustavo remained, still not knowing what to do. The bizarre figure eventually disappeared into the darkness. According to local lore, witches travel in air using balls of fire, which are also frequently seen in the area. So this is from Mexican researcher Ana Luisa Cid, magazine called Angel Cerro.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this next case comes from Tablado de la Guancha, Ponce, Puerto Rico, summer of 2000, 2100 hours. and a group of religious devotees were conducting a ceremony by the edge of the water when suddenly, from behind the boat ramp area, a group of about 10 to 20 young people or kids appeared. Their looks were strange, if not demonic, in appearance. Their skin seemed extremely pale, long, straight, black, dirty hair, sort of a far out look on their faces, and all of them, despite being male, had a feminine appearance. They walked in a kind of uncoordinated, clumsy manner. The stunned witness also noticed that the strangers seemed to be young men with elderly appearing faces. The bizarre group then proceeded to interfere in the religious ceremony, interrupting all the procedures in an obviously blasphemous manner, preventing those attending the ceremony to mention the word God whatsoever. Their aspect was inhuman, and their mocking, unnatural, uh, and they decided,
And
they definitely appeared to be enjoying what they were doing. They had long, pointed, stinky fingernails. The pastor at the ceremony realized that something abnormal was happening and asked for all those present to close their eyes and pray. One of those present opened her eyes to look more closely at one of the retreating entities, and this one seemed to sense her stare and suddenly turned around. His facial anatomy appeared to have transformed. His eyes emitted a slight reddish glow, and his long, fan like teeth now protruding from its mouth. Terrified, she immediately closed her eyes. Everything then became strangely quiet, and opening their eyes again, the bizarre group had by now disappeared. And this is a possible type E encounter.
yeah, I don't know what to make of these creatures. Maybe I don't know, black-eyed kids or who knows. Apparently, demonic in nature. Kind of weird case from Andrew Alvarez from Puerto Rico, researcher. Uh, yeah. Okay, the next one we're gonna go to Poland. Hopefully, it's a more normal case. We've been seeing a lot of weird creatures in this. This is from a place called Sierra Cove in Wielpolska province, Poland. July 14, 2001, time evening. A 23-year-old woman was camping in the area and one evening was walking along a forest on a long meadow on her way to her tent when she noticed a bizarre creature standing by a nearby lake. The creature made a movement as if picking something up from the ground. It then apparently heard the witness approach and quickly disappeared from sight. The witness stood literally petrified as she watched the creature standing only 8 meters from her. She feels that the creature was also frightening from her. She described the creature as resembling a large insect, possibly a mantis. His face was long and thin, his body very thin and subtle, and he was about 1.6 meters tall. Its skin was gray or beige in color. It also had something resembling long and narrow insect-type wings. Its eyes were large and dark, also insect-like. The eyes terrified the witnesses. Quote, it gazed at me and I knew that it did not know what it would do. Our encounter had no meaning or aim. It appears to have been a total surprise for both of us, according to the witness. The witness stated, the witness states that she has witnessed numerous other strange phenomena since that particular encounter. No details are given on that. This is from a researcher, Polish researcher Marcin Mizera from Poland.
I have to say, just personally, having heard all the abduction stories like Travis Walton and Betty and Barney Hill, things like that, you run into a lot of short grays. Sometimes there are taller grays. Once in a very long while, you'll get these mantid beings, and I have to tell you, Albert, the idea of one of these 6-foot tall praying mantis beings just scares the hell out of me. I don't know why, but that's the scariest form of alien to me personally.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that says something or not, but I wouldn't want to run into one of those in a dark alley or a flying saucer.
It's scary. Can you imagine seeing an insect, a cockroach that big? Is about the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so we are in the Sudak area of Crimea, Ukraine, and I think last month we had one from this area. The date is 2001, and the time is evening. In a small village, a local woman named Tatiana was returning home alone from a discotheque, and it was appearing in a gully when suddenly she saw a very tall humanoid silhouette close to 2 meters in height, obviously a man. In the darkness, she could not see many details on the creature. The creature approached her and politely greeted her in the pure Russian language, probably telepathically, asking her why she was walking alone at this time of night. Still thinking that she had encountered a very tall weirdo, just another cavalier or ladies' man, she answered that she usually did this and was used to it. The tall stranger volunteered to accompany her home, but she refused and kept walking alone. When she suddenly turned around, she was stunned to see the tall man not walking but floating just above the ground and following her. The brave woman increased her walking pace. She was just about 5 minutes away from her house. When she stopped, she felt an invisible presence pulling her backward, and she felt
She fell.
She fell, rushing backwards. Okay. The man then told her if she refused his company, he would punish her. Suddenly, a very strong wind threw and knocked the hat from the man's head, and to her utmost amazement, she could see additional details of the stranger's head. The rest of his body appeared to be camouflaged under typical human-looking clothing. Also, the darkness would not allow her to see too many details. The head was indeed amazing. It was non-human with 2 horns on it. Seeing her horribly torpid and frozen state, the humanoid only laughed and suddenly vanished, either dissolved in thin air or quickly rushed into the darkness and out of the night. Since this frightening incident, the witness now refuses to walk alone at night. Well, I probably would too. And that is a type E event as well.
Right. An unknown type of creature alone. Encounter. You're walking alone in the night and you see something like that. Yeah. All right. The next one, we're going to go to a place called San Pablo in the province of Otavalo, Ecuador. January 2001. The time 1500 hours, 3 p.m. The witness was Maria Suspiros Sumac Atambo. Was 14 years of age at the time. Was returning from shopping in town to her grandfather's house. When next to the road that leads to the house, she saw a shiny sphere like the sun. It looked to her as if someone had turned on a giant flashlight on the side of the road. The light was about 10 meters away from her. It looked pretty, and she was not scared at first. She thought it was the spirit, quote, the spirit of her deceased mother that had come to visit her. Since according to a local tradition, quote, bad spirits do not appear during the day, end quote. The shiny sphere was about the size of a medium-sized car. Her eyes bothered her, and she stared at the light. As she stared at the light, suddenly from behind the light, the head of a very tall man appeared. According to Maria, it was a handsome man, but very dark in color and thin, and with large ears. The man had small round eyes like those of a mouse, quote, and very black or dark. He also had a small nose and a mouth with very thick lips. And according to Maria, he seemed sad for some reason, quote. She looked at him and then ran away screaming. She did not notice any other detail except for the face, which seemed to be bright like the sphere. She ran home screaming and told her uncles to look towards the valley. They had heard screaming. They had heard her screaming, but thought that she had only seen a snake and ignored her. As they looked towards the valley, they saw the light, but did not see the strange man. The light suddenly disappeared, emitting a sound like someone tearing a piece of cloth. Quote. The next day, Maria was afraid to leave the house, and her uncle Antonio had to accompany her in her errands for the next month. I got this from another researcher citing his own investigation, Robert Othmar Bettinger.
And this one is a Type C encounter.
Yeah, because there's a light, possibly a craft, and the creature seen next to or near it, or at least the head of the creature was seen. Weird.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get through this next one without murdering the names too bad. Okay, so the location is in Vitória da Conquista, Bahia, Brazil, on January 25th, 2001, during the evening. After dinner, the witness, Mauro Diniz Brumana, went to his backyard to pick some fruit from his grove. While climbing on the mango tree, he noticed an extraordinarily strong red light. Thinking it was a car or a fire, he descended the tree and walked over to investigate the source of the light. Thinking it was a car or a fire, he descended the tree and walked over to investigate the source of the light. Climbing over the neighbor's backyard wall, he noticed a huge disc-shaped object around 10 meters in diameter with bright red lights around the edge and a cupola on top that appeared to have landed on the neighbor's field. Near the object stood two humanoids about 1.2 meters in height, wearing tight-fitting metallic outfits. Unable to move, he stood watching the scene for 10 minutes. After that, the humanoids boarded the object, which took off at high speed. The next day, he called the police, and they found scorched ground areas where the object has landed. And that's a Type B encounter.
Right, because the entities were seen going inside the object. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, the next one, we go to Cape Town, South Africa. Late January 2001, in the evening, doesn't remember that well. The witness, Daniel, was in a field doing a festival called Summer Dreaming that they have there in South Africa, when he apparently went into some sort of altered state consciousness. At the time, he saw a figure of a Japanese-appearing woman, or Asian-appearing, with short hair, who was looking into a mirror and teasing the witness. The witness appeared to have been some sort of the figure appeared to have been some sort of projection or holographic image. The figure went on to morph into several shapes in a Terminator-like sequence. He seemed to morph into the ground and become a lizard-like creature, as well as other shapes, including a figure resembling the Indian god Ganesha, also a large, anomalous-looking toy-like figure, which had big white eyes and puppet-like pupils protruding from itself, and a short, gray, fat, stubby creature we just seemed to sit around and enjoy the proceedings and nods his head. The witness could not get close to the entity, and when he attempted to, it will take an appearance that will make him feel nervous or silly. The whole experience lasted about 20 minutes. Shortly afterwards, he walked into an adjacent field and noticed several short gray humanoid creatures marching out of the forest in rows of two. Their appearance in the witness consciousness appeared to reveal the three-dimensional shapes of a sort of distorted vision, wherever their bodies were supposed to be, sort of like looking through a frosted shower screen. As they marched out of the open field, the witness decided to follow them as they split up. At this time, the witness followed one particular group into the crowd and noticed that it had began to morphen into a human shape, eventually becoming a normal human being who then went on to sit with a group of people around a fire. He also noticed that one or two others of the marching creatures did the same thing, morphing itself into normal human bodies. On January 2nd, 2001, the witness had seen a bright light in the sky at an outdoor event near Cape Town. I got this incident directly from the witness. It's pretty hard to categorize.
Mm-hmm.
It appears to be some kind of altered state event that the witness experienced. So,
Yeah, here you mentioned it's an overly complicated event, and
yeah,
it appears that the witness was the only witness to this complex charade, apparently put on by unknown entities to his benefit.
right.
And I have to tell you, Albert, I've heard this time and time again, where it seems like, and this even happened to me in my second to last sighting, that there's nobody around. It seems to be like it's putting on a show for some reason.
Right, and you're
And
the only one able to see it. I understand.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's very strange that sometimes they seem to be putting on a show for one person, and then later the military doesn't see it unless they look in the infrared spectrum. So sometimes they hide, sometimes they want one person to see them. It's weird.
yeah.
Definitely weird. Okay. So I'll go ahead and pop this guy in there.
Oh, there's one before that. There's
Oh, there
one
it is.
at
Okay.
the one at Jasper, Arkansas. Yeah.
There we go. We'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
And yes. Okay. Jasper, Arkansas, 2001, April, at nighttime. The witness remembers experiencing an abduction which involved sexual activity. The experience was somewhat vague, but it did include a sexual encounter with a dark-skinned female humanoid that looked very human. The female's physical features were a bit different than a normal female human. In particular, the pointed ears and strange skin texture had a liquid-like sensation to the touch. The next day, when he woke, he had intense pain and redness in his groin. It was so bad that he needed to go to a physician, though he never told him about the experience. He was diagnosed as having several testicular inflammation, which required a 2-day stay in the hospital. The inflammation eventually healed and has not caused him any further problems.
There's not much details to the incident, but this was from researcher Lon Strickler, and he wrote a book called Alien Disclosure Experiences Exposed Reality, and this is what the details of that event. I mean,
Yeah,
this type of event has been reported for millennia. Sexual encounters with other type of beings.
sure.
Yeah.
And I was about to say we've had Lon Strickler on the show.
Yeah. Okay.
And he does collect a lot of bizarre encounters.
He does. Okay, the next one, yeah, that was weird too. Is we're going back to the same location in Puerto Rico, Tablado,
Okay.
La Guancha. There was apparently something going on at that time in that area. April 2001. The time is going to be between 2000 and 2100, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Excuse me. A man nicknamed Rafi by the researcher reported encountering similar entities or beings at the same location of the summer 2000 encounter from the other group. The entities were several young men with very pale faces, long black dirty hair, but somehow feminine in appearance. This group stood on the pier and was jumping into the water, but strangely they did not seem to be hitting the water as they seemed to disappear in midair. A taller entity, male-like, over 6 foot tall, stood watching the scene as if waiting for the others to finish. Once that occurred, this figure also jumped in and vanished. The witness did not hear any splashing sounds coming from the water during the event. I mean, this is from Andrew Alvarez. Yeah, there were similar entities to the one seen in summer 2000 by the religious group that were doing a ceremony there.
And so you got this directly from the witness?
From the researcher, Andrew Alvarez. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back to Chile. This next one, the location is Villa San Rafael, Chile. Date May 4th, 2001, 1900 hours. A village resident stepped onto his patio to find his two dogs barking at a very strange creature. The animal was exceedingly small. It measured no more than 40 centimeters tall. He described the creature as very shy. The dogs tried to bite it, but it defended itself with loud screeches, also by opening its mouth, which showed two long teeth in the upper part of the mouth and two smaller ones on the lower jaw. It also stretched out a long tongue of about 25 centimeters in length. The tongue had two tips remarkably similar to the tongue of a snake. The inside of its mouth was green in color, and the creature had extraordinarily little hair, as if it was a newborn. It jumped on me. He was not able to determine if it was a male or female, but saw a small scrotum that appeared to be filled with liquid. The small creature had a strong scent resembling that of sewage. The creature was fighting for its life and was completely filled with panic. As one of the dogs tried to bite its leg, it was able to defend itself by raising its paws to avoid the fatal bite. Shortly afterward, the small creature began to violently jump from side to side, almost hurting itself by hitting a metallic fruit container on the kitchen sink. Suddenly, when seeing that the patio kitchen door was open, the little creature rushed to the patio. The witness attempted to close the door, but it was too late. He was only able to grab its leg and pull some hair from it. He then saw it running away toward a neighbor's house until he lost sight of it. The witness's mother said that a couple days earlier, the same or similar being was spotted on the roof of the laundry room in the back, and that she saw it jump on a mesh that they used for shading, which collapsed notably when the creature landed on top of it. She thought that the creature was walking with a certain level of disorientation and clumsiness, and a quantity of hair was recovered from the mesh.
This in Chile between the year 2000 and 2001, it was like filled with all those type of reports, strange creatures. From where they don't know, but one of the researchers, Jaime Ferrer, thought it was some kind of portal that someone has seen open up in the desert near this location, and something must have gone through it. That's what he thought. All right, the next one, no, the one before that one.
Oh, okay.
The one before is near. We go to Russia now. Nikitskoye in the Kaluga region in Russia, summer 2001. Daytime, a female summer resident from Moscow, temporarily living in this local village, had wandered one day into the forest looking for mushrooms. A lot of stuff happens to people when they go out looking for mushrooms for some reason. The forest had an ominous reputation of being an anomalous zone, which are many of those in Russia. Locals claimed that it was enchanted, claiming that they had encountered mysterious entities in the forest on several occasions. These entities resemble neither humans nor animals, who blocked their path and frightened them. As she walked, she suddenly saw a bluish, fluffy globe rolling between the trees toward her. When the globe rolled to the woman's feet, it unexpectedly transformed itself into a humanoid figure right before her eyes of the stunned woman. The entity resembled an elderly man, shaggy in appearance with red, bulging eyes. The woman began to scream loudly in horror, and the elderly man or creature then again transformed itself into a bluish globe and continued on its way. Later, the woman claimed that she had not intended to go into the forest, as she had heard all the stories surrounding it, but had somehow lost her will and had been pulled deep into the forest by an unknown force that she couldn't resist. This is from researcher Yuri Solotov from New York. From Russia. Uh, that's weird. Another shape-shifting creature turns into maybe a witch or what? I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
Strange.
that's strange.
Yeah.
Okay, we can go ahead and pop that in there now.
Next one. Yeah.
And this one comes to us from near Javansky, Crimea, Ukraine. The date, July 25th, 2001, nighttime. Two people, Irina and her father, were going by the nearby hamlet of Mishor in the southern coast of Crimea when they made a brief stop to replenish their food and mineral water. There, Irina noticed a strange young man hitchhiking on the highway. His uncommon beauty mesmerized her. Tall, blonde, etc. She had never seen such correct and ideal features on a man. The stranger seemed to attract her with some unknown power or influence. She then begged her father to pick up the stranger. When in the back seat, the young man behaved in a strange manner, and he was carrying a strange box-shaped device. He mumbled something unintelligible and drank some mineral water. The father, fearing they had picked up a drug addict, stopped the car and asked him to get out. In response, the stranger leaned toward Irina and suddenly grabbed her hair. She then felt the box-like device being pressed behind her back, and then inexplicably both her and her father became paralyzed, and she felt their bodies became soft and weak, and they seemed to perceive everything through a cloak. The stranger then stepped out of the car and sat on some tree branches and began speaking directly into the black box. Irina thought it could have been some kind of recording device and attempted to leave, but both she and her father still were not able to move. After that, the stranger suddenly appeared in the car again, and the vehicle began moving on its own accord. Both witnesses noticed a bright glow surrounding the car. Approaching Dejavkoy, both witnesses jumped on me again. Both witnesses noticed that the car was still moving, but there was not anyone behind the wheel. Finally, the car stopped near an abandoned gas station. The blonde stranger stepped out of the car and began collecting samples of vegetation, while both Irina remained in the car, unable to move. The stranger then approached the car and leaned into it, and in broken Russian started repeating in a monotone the word "spasbo," which means thank you in Russian. Suddenly, in front, the startled witnesses, the stranger changed into a column of bright light which shot across the front of the car, turning a greenish color. At this point, both witnesses lost consciousness. They both awoke in the morning, and to Irina, to her amazement, she was surprised to see that the eyes were now green in color. They had been brown since birth. And that's referring to her eyes, right?
Right. I don't know. This guy was able to morph into a column of light too.
Yeah.
So we're getting a lot of morphing creatures today. Weird. Okay, here we go. The next one, we're going back to Crimea again. Crimea was busy that year.
Yeah.
Weird case here. This is a place called Karabi Yaila Mountain Plateau near Balki in the Crimea, Ukraine. August 2001, between 2 a.m. 3 a.m. The witness, Elena Grigorievna, her husband and their eldest son, arrived in the area in two separate vehicles. They spent the night. They spent the night camping in the area on the edge of the Caribe Plateau. The location of the incident was on an abandoned property of the Selenorowski State Farm. At one point, her husband's son left, and Alina was left there alone. Her husband and her son left, and Alina was left there alone. She remained in one of the vehicles with her two little kids that had also accompanied them. As her kids slept, she suddenly saw two humanoid figures in white spacesuits. They resemble spacesuits, lit by the light of the moon, walking together on the side of the road, carrying on their arm another similar humanoid that was apparently injured. He was in between the two figures. All three humanoids were much taller than humans, more than 2 meters in height. Their faces Elena could not see. Elena yelled out to them, "Who are you?" One of them answered, "We're friends. One of our group is injured." Concerned, Elena yelled back, let me help you," but one of the humanoids raised his hand and yelled, "Don't approach," warning the witness to stay back. Suddenly, Elena felt being pushed back closer to the vehicle. Like some kind of force pushed her back. Terrified, she saw the three humanoids approach the nearby stream and disappear. She didn't see them again. The humanoid being carried between them was also wearing a white spacesuit. This from researcher Anton Alfalov. He wrote a book called Aliens in the Crimea. I mean, we just got to wonder what happened to the humanoid. He was injured, or what injured him, or who injured him.
Uh-huh.
Strange.
So we'll go to this for the next one here.
Okay. Creepy.
Yeah. So this is located in Parque Urquiza.
Parque Urquiza. Yeah.
Parque Urquiza, Paraná, Argentina. The date, August 3rd, 2001, at midnight. Three young witnesses, Marcella, 19, her friend Carolina, 18, and Carolina's brother, Oscar, 15, were walking through the high grounds of the park near the Urquiza Monument. They were on their way to pick up Marcella's vehicle in order to go to Carolina and Oscar's home. As they walked, they suddenly saw about 30 meters away a strange bipedal wolf-like creature, or lobizon. Terrified, Marcella and Carolina screamed and ran from the area. Marcella almost being struck by a passing vehicle. The only one that remained behind was Oscar, and not out of courage, but out of a paralyzing fear that prevented him from moving. He was able to see the creature perform a feline-like move and jump to the top of a nearby tree, seemingly disappearing in midair right before reaching the tree branches. All three teenagers were traumatized by the incident, and apparently the driver of the vehicle that almost struck Marcella, a Fiat Duna, also saw the creature and sped away from the area at high speed.
A lobizon is what they call a wolf, werewolf type creature down in South America. Mostly in Argentina, it's seen a lot. They call it like a lobizon, lobo meaning wolf, and related to a wolf type creature.
And greetings to the Walter Bosley channel.
Greetings. All right, here we go. The next one, we go back to Ecuador again. A place called Lagunas de Cristal, Parque Nacional Cajas, in the province of Azuay, Ecuador. Year 2002. In the evening, the name of the witness, Lautaro Serrano, and other witnesses, usually like the main witness, had gone to the area. This area located at over 4,000 feet altitude, on a fishing expedition when they reportedly encountered a huge landed, they call it a mothership. Smaller disc-shaped objects were seen to emerge from the larger craft. Some of these landed, and from them, 10 to 15 humanoids emerged. The humanoids were described as short, with large head, extremities ending on 4 digits, no thumbs visible, no hair nor any visible joints, like elbows or knees. They had large slanted eyes and they were dark green in color. Apparently, the humanoids were not wearing any clothing, but no sexual organs were visible. They moved around the area in a strange manner, like ducks, waddling back and forth and seemed to communicate among each other in a sort of a murmuring sound. Quote, the strange entity seemed to inspect the terrain around and completely ignore the witnesses, who were no more than 5 meters away. However, before leaving, one of the entities made a sort of saluting type gesture, with the palm of one of his hands. Moments later, one of the witnesses, who had been armed with a gun, in his excitement accidentally fired his weapon into the air. This caused the entities to return to the ship, which then re-entered the large mothership and left. On the ground where the large object had landed, a scorched triangular-shaped area of about 50 meters was found, where nothing grew for several years afterwards. Sometime later, Lautaro and the same group returned to the area and spotted, at a height estimated to have been 70 to 100 meters, a hovering disc-shaped craft that was suctioning water from the lake. After 15 minutes, it left. This is another case where the entities are seen coming in or out of the object, type B.
And it reminds me, Albert, there are a lot of cases where witnesses that aren't necessarily seen by the entities in the craft are sucking up water.
Right.
And I'm
many cases that way. They suck the water for what reason? I don't know. Maybe they
I
use
don't know
it for
if it's for drinking water or so they can crack it open for hydrogen or
energy,
or
some kind of energy.
It could be rocket fuel, or well, they probably wouldn't use rocket fuel.
No.
Okay, so let's see here. We've got a image for this one right here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you tell us where the location is.
This is from Kandahar region in Afghanistan. That's during the heavy fighting there in 2002.
Yeah. And the time is unknown.
Right.
So a United States Special Forces unit was supposedly operating in a remote area on a mission to find a patrol with which they had lost radio contact and aid if they were in danger. The team was making its way along a goat path when they allegedly noticed the ground was littered with bones and a piece of what ominously appeared to be broken communications equipment, as well as large, heavy rocks that looked as if they had been arranged into patterns by hand. It was claimed that the unit examined these stone patterns and the piece of smashed equipment, and they were suddenly confronted by a creature with long red hair and a shaggy beard, which stood a truly enormous 12 to 15 feet in height. The towering humanoid beast reportedly carried a long pike-like weapon of some kind, which it used to promptly stab one of the men, and the rest of the team immediately opened fire on it, managing to apparently kill it. The entire violent episode only lasted around 30 seconds. It is claimed that a military helicopter was sent to retrieve the body of the creature, but was unable to do so due to its massive size. One of the witnesses would say, "It was too big. We couldn't move it. It smelled worse than a skunk, a corpse that's been around for a while. The communication was sent out that we had a very large, possibly human creature." Close quote. One C-130 pilot later claimed that he helped when the corpse of what had come to be known as the Kandahar Giant was eventually moved to a military base in Ohio, and that it was revealed to be a humanoid creature that measured 12 feet long and weighed approximately 1,100 pounds. What happened to the alleged body after that is anyone's guess. Witnesses claim that they were later ordered to alter the reports on the government on the engagement to remove all mention of the giant and that they had encountered, and the government had gone to great lengths to cover it all up. As to what the creature could have been, those who believe the story point to the fact that its description matches up very well with a legendary race of giants written of in the Bible, which are called the Nephilim, and are described as often carrying lances or weapons.
You know, that's not the first time I heard stories coming out of that region, Afghanistan and Pakistan, of giant type creatures like that, mostly human type in appearance. What they are, I don't know. Nephilim, who knows? Okay. The next one is kind of weird, but all of these stories have been weird. So this is occurred near Buffalo, New York, summer 2003, in the afternoon. A group of young friends were out having their fun. They were having their run of their little Rust Belt town, not far from big city, doing all the things kids do before they discover drugs and girls, and all the other things that take you out of the childhood sense of adventure. In particular, they were out in this part of town they called the Flats, originally sown industrial, but after the big fiber plant closed, nature reclaimed the place for the most part. So it was fields and woods once you got past the big dilapidated factory that sits on the tracks. For obvious reasons, the parents around there told the kids to keep out of the area because it could be dangerous. But the thing that is considered odd about this part of town is that there have been consistently been rumored that there's a waste of some kind of there is waste of some kind buried out there that's toxic, allegedly radioactive and or related to the Manhattan Project, which I guess would be radioactive. It had become local folk wisdom that there's something out there you don't want to get into since the 1950s. The group of friends were playing manhunt, which is basically hide and seek, and so one of them was going through the wood looking for his friends who were hiding pretty successfully from him. He reached a break in the trees, stepped out into the small meadow, and that's when he saw it. Across the field, about 20 yards away, there was something squatting in the tree line, clad in all silver and a bulbous helmet, looking almost like some astronaut from a D-grade sci-fi flick. It saw him in the same instant he saw it and leaped up in surprise. There was something off and almost simian about the stance it took when he leaped up, almost like a chimp in a spacesuit, but taller and close to human. Just as quick, it raised his arms like he was going to point and somehow fired a tiny metal dart at the witness, which hit him in the hand as he turned to run. He ripped the thing out of his hand while running and screamed for his friends. Apparently, the witness still had a scar where he was struck by the object. The boys returned later, but they found nothing strange except a weird-looking warehouse-type building closer to the freeway than the woods that was relatively new and empty wilderness. So they didn't know what to make of that building. And that creature, whatever it was, shot something at the witness, which he discarded, but he still had the scar later.
From its finger.
Yeah. Something. He had something in either his hand or finger. Who knows?
Okay. So this next one, I'm going to murder again. The location is Schnauzetal Mountain, South Tyrol, Germany. The date is summer 2003 and the time afternoon. A couple had hiked up to the summit of the mountain at an altitude of 2,400 meters. As a large flock of sheep grazed nearby, a lightning bolt struck the ground near the herd. At the end, which was glistening, there was a glistening white sphere about 1.5 to 2 meters in diameter, resting on a large rock. The sheep grazed on unbothered. The sphere began moving from one rock to the other about 100 to 200 meters from the witness. The woman screamed in shock and called out for help. The strange sphere then crept up the rock face and stopped halfway. The sphere dimmed and human-like figures approached wearing tiny snow-white belts, which they then opened up, sort of an umbrella, and shot up into the sky at an angle like lightning. The two witnesses were in shock for several days after the experience. And I wanted to mention to folks that I'm currently undergoing a sciatica attack, so I took an extra pain pill, which is what's making me a little slower than I usually am. So I'm on drugs is the reason.
Yeah, the human-like figure appeared to be wearing shiny snow white belt, and then it opens some kind of umbrella type apparatus and shot up into the sky.
Yeah, it's like a
lightning.
utility belt or something.
Weird. Germany. Okay, so the next one, we go to near, where is it? There we go. Oh, near Guatemala City in Guatemala, summer 2003 night. Eduardo, the main witness, a young Pentecostal and hotel worker, was walking back home from the hotel. He lived at about 1.25 kilometers away. Earlier that night, he had seen a UFO hovering above the hotel. Several guests had also seen the UFO. After work, he started home on a very clear night. Suddenly, he saw a craft coming from the west. It was like a large orange object shaped like a bicycle wheel. It was rotating. He thinks it hypnotized him, quote. He thought at first he was headed away from the city, but instead it stopped and hovered over his mother's house. Concerned, he ran towards the house, and just as he came around the bend in the road, a bright blue light came down from the bottom of the craft. It was a beautiful sight, and he felt very happy. He knew he had nothing to fear from the visitors. It was a strange feeling. He no longer felt tired, and he felt alert. I thought he had slept for hours. He then heard voices telling him to be calm, but it was not long before he became afraid again. It was then when the blue light changed into a white light. He was frightened. He couldn't move. He was paralyzed. That's when he felt his feet leave the ground, and although he started kicking his feet and swinging his arm, a powerful force pulled him upward, and he could do nothing about it. He was then taken aboard the craft. They showed him around and told him that they loved the Maya people. He was a Maya descendant in that area, a lot of Mayas. He had been chosen because of his Maya heritage. They told him that the knowledge from the stars has always been hidden in the Maya hieroglyphics, but they have never been deciphered correctly. So they have decided to choose a Maya man, him, to teach the knowledge to the world. They told Eduardo that he was a messenger. They said that the earth is changing and that a new world will come soon. This is the message that was given to him. They said that there will be wars and earth shaking. People will starve to death. The earth will burn. And this is a quote directly from the aliens. We're living in the fourth world, but a fifth world is coming. It's too late to stop it, according to what they told him. He was supposed to tell the people to get ready. The fourth horseman will come first. They will ride on white, red, black, and yellow horses, symbolizing the four corners of the world and the colors of the people of the world. When these horsemen appear, the fourth world will end and the fifth world will begin. Obviously, he interpreted a lot of what he experienced with his religious beliefs. Being a Pentecostal, Eduardo described the entities as smaller than him, about 4 feet tall, wearing white suits and masks. They had helmets, like motorcycle helmets, on their heads. But their faces were covered with a mask, like with large goggles, so he couldn't see their faces. He didn't know what they looked like. He felt frightened of what their appearance could have been. He remembers seeing two spacecraft, a big one like a bicycle wheel, described earlier. It was hollow in the middle. It rotated. The smaller one was circular. He came out of the bigger one. He remembers seeing four small men and one tall man who was different from the small ones. He thinks there were more. He saw passageways that led to other rooms. The inside of the craft was big, as the lobby was big as the lobby of the hotel where he worked, and the tall man floated around the room like he had wheels on his feet. Quote, he was bony with thin white hair. He never smiled or frowned. He never looked at Eduardo. He was busy with some instruments. Eduardo doesn't know what the man was doing. And before returning, returning, the aliens told him that they will return and that they will come for him. He told his mother what happened, and she told him that he had been cursed by the devil. I guess they interpreted again, religious interpretation. This is from a great researcher. R.D. Sixkiller in her book Sky People, Untold Stories of Alien Encounter in Mesoamerica.
Yeah, I'd really like to get her on the show. She's a great investigator.
Last time I was in contact with her, she was very ill. I haven't heard from her in a while, and I sent her a couple messages, and I haven't had any response. I hope she's okay.
Yeah, me too. She's written some really good books.
Yes, she has.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn this on again here for this case. And this one, the location is San Bartolome, Huarachi Province, Peru.
Yeah.
The date is July 2003 at 2 a.m. Two local men were celebrating with some beers. They were not intoxicated on the outskirts of the village when they suddenly noticed a bright light that crossed the sky ahead of them and seemed to fall behind a nearby hill known as Cerro de la Pascua. Curious as to what they had seen, they decided to walk up the hill and investigate. As they walked up to the summit, they suddenly saw two man-like figures walking down from the top of the hill in their direction. The figures were tall, about 1.85 meters, and slim. After wearing tight-fitting silvery metallic outfits that perfectly outlined their well-muscled bodies. The two witnesses stopped when they noticed that the figures had glowing eyes and were not exactly walking, but floating just above the ground. As the figures got closer, one of the men, not being afraid, approached one of them and grabbed it by the cheeks, like on the face.
Yeah.
This was apparently interpreted as an act of aggression by the stranger. Immediately, the entity struck the man and he flew through the air and rolled downhill. The other witness then ran toward the stranger and a struggle ensued. At the same moment, a taxi was approaching the village. In it were the driver and a local couple. The headlights of the taxi illuminated a strange scene. The occupants saw two original witnesses lying limp on the ground, and standing or hovering over them were the two tall, slim, silvery-clad figures. The terrified driver stopped the cab and refused to go any further and told the couple to leave the car. The two passengers, a husband and wife, ran to their nearby home and locked themselves in. The two original witnesses and the cab driver then saw the two tall figures float back up the hill and disappear. Moments later, a large bright light was seen rising from behind the hill and then shot away at high speed toward
Markawasi.
Say again?
Markawasi. That's the
That's
plateau.
Exactly how I was going to say it.
Okay.
A month later, a local businesswoman, while driving back to the village, saw standing by the road near the same hill two tall, silvery-clad men. She drove away at high speed. Other local farmers had seen strange lights over the area at the same time. When interviewed later, the two original witnesses stated that while in the presence of the strange silvery clad beings, they felt as if time had come to a standstill.
This is from Peruvian researcher Dr. Anthony Choi. He has investigated a lot of strange cases from Peru. A lot of cases from there. Oh, we're going back to the Ukraine again. Wow, I'm telling you, it's a long one here.
Yeah, it's like Ukraine, Chile, and
Crimea.
Brazil.
This is from the town of Simferopol in the Crimea, Ukraine, which is currently occupied, that area there, by Russia. At the end of August 2004, late night. The witness was a Maria Tretrakyova, who lived on the 6th floor of a 10th-story dormitory belonging to the Medical Institute on Pavlenko Street. This complex was located directly across Gagarin Park. At the time, she was preparing to enroll in the Simferopol Medical Institute and did not drink or smoke, living a fairly routine life. One late night, she suddenly awoke completely immobilized. She was only able to move her eyes. A bright light from an unknown source flooded the bedroom, but it apparently came from somewhere outside the window. There was a sudden dazzling flash, and her body shivered for a second, and she felt that she was no longer lying on her bed, but now was in a metal table that was very cold and some sort of operating room. However, the room was empty and was illuminated in a matte white light, again from an invisible source. She could only surmise that she had been teleported, quote, to this location, since the window of her 6-story Florida apartment had been closed. Near her stood several strange creatures. Now that she could see several strange creatures. They were lizard-like, according to her, or reptilian, with scaly skin. There were about 5 to 7 of them. Their faces were long, with thin necks and typical snake-like eyes with vertical pupils. On their heads, they had a lump-like protrusion, and all of them were naked. Among them were females, as she saw breast-like protrusion on some of the creatures. On her field of vision, she saw at a distance 2 short gray-skinned beings with large heads, which were apparently subservient to the reptilian creatures. They appear to be doing all the supporting work, quote. She wanted to see them in more detail, but was still unable to move. Terrified, she attempted to scream, but could not hear her own voice. The reptilian creature stood over her and used different type of instruments, apparently operating on her. Quote, according to Maria, they took samples from her ovum. Maria noticed that the tools they used seemed to appear from nowhere, as she saw no storage bins or other facilities. Excuse me. The tools were very intricate and beautiful in nature, according to Maria. Thin needles and all sorts of amazing gadgets. The entities inserted the tools into Maria's ears, nose, genitals, etc. One of the tools resembled a long wand, a little longer than a fountain pen, which seemed to have a ball-like protrusion at the tip. This tool was inserted into her nose, apparently into both nostrils, and she thinks it was used to insert implants. Another similar tool was inserted into her ear. The creatures held the tools with 3 fingers, clamping them between the index and the middle finger. Apparently, the creatures were able to freely read her thoughts. She also heard their voices inside her mind. The voices seemed unnatural, somehow electronic in nature. But I guess she was able to understand them. When the creatures spoke to her, they did not move their mouth. In response to her outrage and her questions, their answer was something like, "We have power over you," or "We can do anything we want with you, since we created you, creature. We created you." Strange. It seems that she was given some type of injection that made her body numb. Also, she did not find any pinpricks on her. She told him mentally, I have an exam tomorrow and I will be late for it. One of the reptilians answered, You have time. One of your minutes equals to 100 years for us. According to Maria, they manipulated her without any gloves, moving her arms and legs. She felt some pain, but mostly fear. They told her, Your fear is needed. Apparently, during the fear stage, certain hormones are released by the body, and the creatures needed to collect samples of such hormone. During the examination, Maria was still wearing her pajamas, and all the examinations were done through the clothing, without leaving any holes. She was never stripped of her clothing, and in the morning she woke up, she was still wearing her pajamas. The reptilians' hands were very cold, apparently because of their cold-blooded nature. They had 4 to 5 clawed fingers. She asked them mentally, Why don't you wear gloves? Protect yourself. There was no answer. She felt afraid as she realized that they were probably meat eaters, and for a moment Maria thought they were going to eat her. Quote. She then told them telepathically, I'm not tasty, my blood is corrupt. Their answer was, We know what kind of blood you have. In apparent effort to gain sympathy from them, Maria told them that she loved reptiles from a very young age, snakes, lizards, etc. There was no response. Soon they lifted her from the metal table and transported her into a different room. She was struck as how the door to the other room opened. The reptilian at the front just lifted a clawed hand and waved it, and part of the wall just seemed to move away or dissolved, like smoke. They then passed through the newly formed passage. In this room, along the whole wall, there were transparent rectangular-shaped flasks or containers filled with an unknown liquid. Inside these flasks or containers floated, or rather sat, human-like children in embryo poses. There were babies of a typical terrestrial appearance, and there were a lot of them. They appeared to be some type of suspended animation within the containers. This was the reason they needed material from her ovum, and other terrestrial women also, obviously, to create these hybrid children. At the end of her contact, they told her, Be afraid of deception. If you notice something unusual, do not be afraid. We were at work. They then warned her that humanity was in great danger, or on the brink of a major disaster, that they wanted to save the earth. She then asked them, What should I do to survive? Their answer was, Clear your head of all unnecessary information. That is the only way to survive. Question mark. How could that be? I don't know. They added, there will come a time when there will be a lot of malice. Only a very few good ones will survive. All the evil ones shall perish. Originally, the earth was created for good and kind people, but evil has taken over. End quote. That's what they told her. Maria then asked, Can I stay with you? I have no family here. I'm an orphan. I do not remember my mother or father. I don't have any children, and I'm not married. Their answer was, You will not survive with us. She understood that there were conditions on her planet not suitable to humans. As she understood, they somehow brought her back to the very moment when she had fallen asleep, apparently in an obvious ability to manipulate space and time. She immediately fell into a deep sleep. After the experience, her right ear was aching and swollen, and her nose itched. Then it went away. Otherwise, she felt good. She passed all the entrance examinations to the Institute, and according to Maria, it seems like her memory had improved. She feels as if new knowledge was somehow inserted into her brain. End quote. She points out that they did not harm her, even though she's convinced they, quote, could have her eaten her for breakfast, end quote. A few days later, her nose began to itch again, and when she blew her nose, she sneezed and blood came out also from her left nostril. two tiny black pointy square objects fell, similar to steel. Unfortunately, they fell into the drain and she was unable to retrieve them. She feels that the implant in her right ear moves around like a worm. X-rays and ultrasounds have failed to locate it. She feels that it has some type of protective shield or shell. Maria feels that there's much more of the incident that was intentionally erased from her memory by the aliens. She also began experiencing astral travel weeks after the experience. This was again from researcher Anton Anfolov from the Ukraine. That's a weird abduction there. A lot of warnings from the aliens.
Now, this one is a little close to home for me.
Yeah.
The location is Wichita, Kansas, September 28th, 2004 at 2020 hours. Luke M. and his friend Jeff were playing basketball in the parking lot of Trinity Wesleyan Methodist Church when they had a most unusual experience. Luke was getting ready to take another shot when he suddenly stepped left unknowingly to see something strange in the sky. The basketball goal faces north, and Luke was facing south. He was puzzled as to what he saw and tried to call Jeff, but was apparently in shock. He saw a V formation of 4 angel, butterfly, moth-shaped beings flying through the sky. They were flying like birds, or as fighter jets do in a V formation, with one on the left of the formation and 2 on the right, and one in the middle or the front. They were perfectly ordered in equal distance from each other for the entire time. They were maybe the size of Lear jets or maybe a 747, and were not at a 45 to 50 degree angle and were at a 54 to 50 degree angle above the horizon. They flew perfectly south away from the church, not gaining or losing altitude. He saw them for a total of 10 to 15 seconds. The figures resembled large butterflies made out of completely made out of light yellow in color. The main witness convinced that he had seen 4 angels.
Strange. They were big too. Okay, the next one we go to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. August 11, 2005, afternoon. The witness Angela Dersops was at the local library with her children when a little girl sat right in front of them. She was holding a book and flipping pages but was not reading. She was looking directly at her son, who sat reading a book to the witness. She had absolutely no expression on her face and moved her head in a very peculiar manner. Talking about the little girl. The witness' other son was sitting behind the strange girl at another table and never did see her face directly, but he did see her from the side. She caught his attention because there was something odd. He noticed that she was holding a book but was looking at his mother. Her eyes shifted and occasionally she would look to the side. But more bizarrely, her eyes were not of this world, quote. They were not deformed, but were 2.5 to 3 times the size of normal eyes and were almond shaped, and incredibly were at a 60-degree angle. Everything else about her was normal, except for her eyes. Soon a woman, whom the witness assumed was the girl's mother of about 55 years of age, approached the girl. She asked her why she was reading French since she didn't know how to read French. The girl then stood up without any expression, almost robotic-like, and walked around, every so often glancing back at Angela, the witness. She grabbed a book off the shelf and threw it at the woman's basket, and they left. This is could have been a hybrid, some type of hybrid. I got this
That's
directly.
just what I was thinking.
Yeah, I got this directly from the witness.
It reminds me a little bit of when Whitley Strieber said that he was in a New York bookstore and there were a couple of diminutive figures with hoods on that were looking at his newly published book and saying, "Well, that didn't happen. That didn't happen." They were laughing and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
he saw it at a bookstore, right?
Oh, it was his publisher that saw that. That's what it
Oh,
was.
it's publisher, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this next one, I'm going to let you tell us where this is.
This is at a place called Ljubovija in Serbia,
Okay.
the former Yugoslavia.
Ljubovija.
Yeah, there you go.
Serbia.
Serbia.
And this is August 23rd to 24th in 2005. The time is during the evening. The witness, Miklos Dokic, was getting some work done in front of his house when he heard the children that were playing soccer nearby shout, "A man flying." He briefly glanced at the roof of a nearby yellow building and saw a small man with a black cape walking on the edge of the roof. He got back to work thinking it was somebody installing a television antenna. When the children began shouting a second time, the witness's wife, Slavoya, came back out of the house to see a man floating in midair between the yellow building and their building. He was surrounded by a faint glow, and his eyes glowed mysteriously as well. They then attempted to approach the humanoid, but he retreated, always keeping the same distance. Then a strange game ensued. Every time they approached, the strange figure would retreat, always keeping the same distance. When they stopped, he stopped, all the time hovering in the air. After a few times that this occurred, the humanoids abruptly turned around and disappeared behind the poplar trees near their building. The following day, around 1500 hours, the mysterious figure was seen again flying toward the Kik Hill, then turning toward Nemec. There were many witnesses this time, people walking on Drin Street, including a bus full of people and crowds of people that were waiting at the stadium for the soccer match to begin. The description was again identical. Some said that it appeared to fly as if it had an engine of some sort strapped to its back, defying gravity. The police conducted an investigation, but forward saying that his children had seen something similar earlier in the summer of the same year, but at the time he did not take the story seriously. This sighting took place in the village of Lokaj near Zvornik, some 50 kilometers from Ljubovija, where the family was on vacation. His two children, Lazar and Diana, along with the other children from the village, saw for 3 nights in a row a similar being, also apparently flying. They described it as having the shape of a man that was stooped over. The children were very upset and did not go outside to play anymore after that. And I have to tell you, Albert, this reminds me a lot of the wave of flying humanoids that came from Mexico around that same time. It was almost like they were sitting in a chair.
Yeah, and some of them were filmed. They were photographed in Mexico. You're right.
And they're really creepy looking.
Very creepy. All right, the next one we go to Italy, a place called Bohano and Campobasso in the province of Molise, Italy. 2006 in the morning, a retired septuagenarian, I guess that's somebody in the 70s, and former employee of the foreign ministry, was shopping at the local country market. At the time, he was surrounded by numerous other shoppers and workers, when suddenly he saw before him a sort of white rectangular area, quote, or sheet. He felt enveloped in a vacuum and now could not see any of the familiar landscape around him. Suddenly, he seemed to be floating and found himself in the presence of 3 strange beings, which he was able to remember, which he was unable to remember their features. He believes one of the beings injected something into his arm, and after that, his memory goes blank. His next memory is of being returned to the normal surroundings, still in the center of Bojano Market. The witness claims other encounters. So here we go, an incident in which, for some reason, the witness was chosen and nobody else saw what happened in the middle of a market. Weird.
Yeah, and I'm noticing already a lot of similarities in these cases. There are people that are floating instead of walking, all kinds of stuff during this time period.
Weird.
Yeah. So this one is located at a turkey crossing near Dickens, Texas, late January 2006 during the night. A teenager driving home after a late basketball game was driving extra carefully on a road known for having quite a bit of wildlife on it at night when she noticed something up ahead. She started to pass the nearest ranch entrance, and she noticed that there was something sitting on a wide gate. She didn't know what it was, so she slowed down to get a look. As she got closer, she saw a flesh-colored animal about 3 feet tall, crouched on top of the post. It had a round head like an owl and a round sloped face with the tiny round nose like a short snout and a slit for a mouth. It had eyes that looked like they were slanted down at the inside toward the nose and up toward the outside. She couldn't see what color the eyes were as they did not shine when her headlights lit it up. The creature was sitting with its feet together and its knees out in a bow-legged squat. It had feet like a bird with a set of toes or talons in the back and another set in the front. It had short arms with a flap of triangular skin on the back sides. There was something pointed at the tips of the skin flaps that looked like a bat thumb or claw. It looked like it had paws with 4 digits on each one, and the arms... Sorry, it jumped on me.
You want me to finish it for you? And the arms were partially hidden underneath the flap
underneath
of skin.
The flap of skin on each side.
Right.
If the skin flaps were wings, the creature did not attempt to use them to fly. The skin or short fur was a tan or peach color, and it was wrinkled in places just like a baby bat. Just as the teenager started to pass the creature, it sprung from a gatepost and jumped toward her truck. The gatepost is quite a distance from the highway, but she swerved to avoid hitting the creature. The thing hit the ground, crouched for a second, and then started running on 2 legs. She said she hit the gas pedal and left the thing eating dust. She was so scared that she cried the rest of the way home. Goodness.
Weird.
That one's also a type E.
Type E, yeah. Some kind of creature encounter. All right. The next one, we're going to go to back to Central America. There's an image there. A place called near Cerro El Picacho near the Tegucigalpa in Honduras. Year 2007, 1730, 530. A 9-year-old girl named Juana was playing dolls in her backyard when she thought what she thought were 2 small kids approached her and showed her a sort of hovering and gyrating small wheel that remained in midair, to the girl's astonishment. The 2 kids, quote, did not say a word and kept playing with the hovering wheel, which remained floating at a certain distance above the ground. Using hand signals, the 2 visitors, they never spoke. They beckoned to young Juana and placed the rotating wheel between her hands. She then suddenly rose up into the air above the roof of their home, her small hands seemingly attached to the hovering wheel. Moments later, she descended slowly to the ground. The so-called kids then grabbed the wheel again, walked away, disappearing into the nearby woods. According to Juana, the small kids were wearing tight-fitting gray colored pajamas, and red gloves. Gloves. I'm sorry. After they have left, Juana saw a bright light in the area and the woods where they had disappeared into. So she then ran into the house and told her mother, Irma, what had just occurred. According to neighbors, strange lights have been seen over the hills in the vicinity of the large Christ the Redentor statue on top of a local hill. 3 days after the encounter with the strange kids, or entities, wherever they were, and the rotating wheel burn marks appear on little Juana's hands, similar to a deep suntan. Her hands felt hot, but she experienced no pain. Her mom then placed her hands in a tub of water containing aloe, and when Juana took her hands out of the water had become warm. That same night, the burn marks disappeared. This is from a researcher from Honduras, Jorge Montenegro. He wrote a book called Extraterrestrials and UFOs in Honduras. Strange.
And I just wanted to mention too, I think Darius is our only mod today, that if he can, we can go ahead and drop the link for the giveaway at this point. And if not, then we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, so that was from Jorge Montenegro, right?
Right.
Okay.
No.
So this one is in the Gyanya area of Azerbaijan. The date, spring 2007. Time, daytime. A local woman had gone into a local field and reportedly disappeared. Relatives immediately instituted a search and notified the local police. However, nothing was found. After 3 days, she reportedly returned home in a state of confusion, not remembering where she had been for the last 3 days. However, the amnesia gradually began to pass, and she was able to remember being on some type of shiny table, surrounded by several anthropomorphic figures that she was not able to describe due to the glare of the light. Unfortunately, she could not remember anything else. It is known that prior to her abduction, the woman was suffering from a rare form of cancer and had been treated in doctors in Russia and Germany. In the autumn of the same year, the woman returned to see her doctors, and it was found that she was now totally cancer-free. Apparently, the woman had been healed somehow, even though she could not remember how this happened.
So here we have a cure claim that happens once in a while, and if those incidents are true, you got to wonder why some people are chosen to be cured, others are not.
Yeah, and some abductees go through pain experiments.
Yeah.
And Darius is mentioning for folks to please enter a 1 in the chat if they'd like to be eligible to win the book tonight, because we're going to manually enter folks into the spinner wheel instead of drop the link. And this one's in Ukraine too.
Yeah, the next one is Ukraine, a place called Kharkiv. Sometimes the Russians call it Kharkov, Ukraine, March 2007 in the evening. The main witness, a named Vera Kondina, 57 years old, was in her apartment with her adult and pregnant daughter, Oksana, when suddenly they heard a strange noise in the balcony. At the time, the balcony was open. When they went to check, they saw a strange entity in the balcony. They describe it as a short, girl-like figure with short, silvery blonde hair in a square page-like cut, tied up in what appeared to be a silvery bow. Her hair and skin were also metallic gray in color. The strange girl was dressed in a knee-length greenish cape outfit. She had big eyes and eyelashes, a small nose, and a tiny mouth. The eyes were similar to human, only bigger, and her pupils were completely black. Oksana immediately felt fear at the sight of the stranger and tried to shield her mother, but suddenly heard a mental message apparently from the girl which said, "Go in peace." Almost immediately, the entity grabbed the balcony railing and jumped down. They lived in a fourth floor apartment. Vera then ran to the balcony and saw the strange girl descend slowly towards the ground as her cape outfit opened up like a parachute. When she landed, she quickly ran and was lost from sight behind the basement of the apartment complex. Vera immediately returned to Oksana and asked her if she had seen the strange girl, and Oksana assured her that she had. A strange fact that Vera noted was that before the stranger jumped, she looked briefly at Oksana into her eyes as if she had known her all her life. This is from the UFO group in Ukraine called UFOtos. Uh, here we go. We have another little, perhaps hybrid type girl, little girl. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this might be our last one. We're kind of getting into the end of the show here. So this one is located in Ruinau, Mazovia, Poland. The date is 2008, and the time is during the evening. Two young people, about 20 years of age, were walking in the area of Henrik Sinowick's Street when at one point their attention was drawn by a strange dark spot against the blue sky that seemed to be moving closer to them. They remember that the object was shaped like a black square, and soon the object began to take the shape of a figure and details began to emerge, as if looking at the base of the Statue of Liberty. First the square base, and then the details of the figure, starting with the head, finally taking shape of a standing person. The figure then flew through the area, looking ahead, hands held in front, quite close to the torso, and encountered something, connected rather, to something that resembled the letter T. It looked a bit like a handlebar of a bicycle, only that the horizontal beam was very short. The figure was the same color as the square platform, somehow resembling a plastic soldier figurine. It was very dark brown with a reddish tint, or dark wood. For some reason, the sight of it felt very strange and even disturbing. It appeared to be a flying man-shaped figure standing in the middle of the platform, holding on to the handlebars. The personage stood upright on the platform all the time without looking down. They could not tell if it was looking from side to side, but they did not think so. It seemed to be on a specific flight course. It flew at a constant speed, moving forward and slowly rising. After about 2 to 3 minutes of observation, it began to take off a bit faster, climbing faster into the distance. Then it became too small for them to be able to see any additional details. The square platform was not thick, perhaps the thickness of 3 boards. The witnesses did not notice any type of clothing or implements. The whole thing lasted like a motionless figure gliding across the sky. The observation lasted about 3 to 5 minutes. They never heard any sound, and the weather was very sunny and hot.
So this is from Polish researcher Eric Miaska. He has a blog spot, and he has a lot of cases there. Yeah,
Okay,
another flying humanoid.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's been several different patterns in the cases tonight.
Yeah.
If Darius is ready, let's go ahead and bring him in, and we'll get that wheel going.
Okay.
As soon as Darius can join us. And while we're waiting, and Darius says he's coming. Albert, what did you say that you were going to be working on for your next book?
I'm almost it's done. I just gotta get my publisher to publish it or to start, working on that, which for some reason hasn't happened. So I'm working on one that will cover the years 2016 through 2022, which I already have a bunch of cases there. So we'll see. We're hoping on that.
And of course, the ever wonderful Darius Munchausen is with us. Hello, Darius.
Hello, Gil.
How are you?
Hello, Albert.
Hi.
I'm having a
Here's
great
the book.
day.
Do we have our wheel ready?
We do, yeah. I think, am I sharing it yet? Oh, I think it disappeared on me. Let's see, wheel of names. Okay, you should see it now.
Yeah, I got it. And there it is.
All right, so let me check the chat one last time. No, I think that's everyone. All right, so we got Phantom Boomer, Cam, UFO Bigfoot, Don McDouglas, and Herc 130. Are you ready?
We are ready.
All right,
Ready.
spin time.
Go. UFO Bigfoot. Yay.
UFO Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
First
Congratulations.
time winner, I think.
I think so, yeah.
All right.
I'm going to need you to email me your information to bill@sunflower.com, and I will pass that along to Albert.
And here's the book right here.
Yeah. Or you can just email me and give me your email address, and I'll pass that along to Albert, whichever way you prefer.
Yeah, his address. Yeah.
Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. There you go. So, great show. Thanks again, Darius, for helping us out.
Thank you.
It's my job.
Definitely appreciate you being here. And we will see you next time.
All right, Gil. I hope you feel better. Okay.
Oh, we'll do.
Let's try to rest up, and we'll talk again. Hopefully, I'll keep sending you cases. All righty.
All right, sounds good.
Take care.
For everybody here, it's Cardinal Sin out.